So you probably saw the title of the video, and I promise it's not clickbait, and I'll explain why in a second, but first we have to lay down some context. So I debated for a long time how to do this Borges video on the Library of Babel, as it is such an incredible work. I really want to get it right, so here we go. I titled my previous video on Jorge Luis Borges's The Lottery in Babylon Modern Mythology, as I drew parallels between the way ancient pagans made stories to explain natural phenomenon, and how the story The Lottery in Babylon is about how chance events might be explained by humanity's desire for excitement, even if it means great personal loss. You will notice this video is about modern ontology, as the Library of Babel is less about explaining how things come to be and much more explains what the universe is like. I know, a small distinction to make, but it'll make sense. If you'd like to listen to the story, I'll leave a link, but you don't need to, as I'll try to explain everything in the summary starting now. So, the story starts by imagining an infinite universe that is entirely made up of a single infinite library. The library is made up of hexagonal rooms, and these rooms have bookshelves, a staircase, and a bathroom for bathroom stuff. The library is populated by librarians, and the bookshelves are populated by an infinite number of books, each containing a random collection of letters, periods, and commas. The librarians begin studying the books and find most of them to be full of totally random gibberish, but they begin thinking about what it means to live in a universe that is truly infinite. One of them stumbles upon the idea that if the number of books is infinite, but the number of possible letter combinations is countable, for those using the English alphabet 26 characters plus a period, space, and comma, then some rooms in the library have to contain books that contain letters that randomly fall into coherent sentences, just by pure chance. And more than that, inevitably, the library has to contain all possible combinations of letters, thus all possible knowledge, and all you would need to do is dig through an infinite amount of books that contain gibberish. Upon this revelation, a group of librarians forms which are determined to seek out books containing true information, by methodically going from room to room and sorting through all the nonsense in hopes of finding books with useful information. This group soon realizes how daunting of a task it is to sort through the infinite, and even discover that their task is even more difficult than they first imagined, as not only do they have to find books that contain coherent words, but often when they find legible books, the information randomly appearing in them is wrong. Imagine the disappointment of finding a book that purports to contain the best possible recipe for cake, only to read it and find it calls for pickles and liver. So another group forms. This new group determines that the search for knowledge in randomness is utterly futile. Sorting through infinite randomness is impossible, and even if you could do it, you could never be sure you hadn't found lies that would not only not help humanity, but could ultimately ruin cake for everyone. So they decide to destroy as many books as they can, to try and thwart the group that is trying to find knowledge in the hopes that they will prevent a greater evil from befalling humanity in the discovery of harmful information. But this group's task is also just as fruitless as the first group's. You see, the library is infinite, so even if they succeed in destroying a book of harmful knowledge, there are still an infinite number of books that are simply imperfect facsimiles of the book they already destroyed. Imagine destroying the recipe for pickle and liver cake, only to find one for liver and pickle. Okay. So that's the overview of the story. Now, here are the three consequences that make it, in my mind, one of the best works of literature ever. And I know that's saying a lot, but I love this story a lot, so I feel justified in saying it. First, it is a beautiful work of ontology. The ideas it engenders about living in an infinite universe are really thought-provoking, because that's what we live in. Albeit not one of letters, but of atoms, and when you think about living in an infinite universe with a finite number of stable atom combinations, you begin to realize that all possible combinations of atoms have to repeat somewhere. From there, you can think about worlds that exist parallel to our own, with a similar arrangement of atoms, but maybe being slightly imperfect facsimiles, like a world without pickles or Italians, and you can begin to imagine a more perfect world that has to exist. It isn't even possible that it doesn't, given the power of infinite chance. Second, while being a fascinating ontological work, it also tells a tale about human nature. When faced with the same possibilities, oftentimes humans will work at cross purposes. There are plenty of people who are excited by the possibility of progress, yet oftentimes progress comes with unintended side effects. These side effects can often be so bad that some people might look at progress and come to the conclusion that the marginal gains being made just aren't worth the trouble. You see it in medicine all the time, and you know you're seeing a crummy doctor if they aren't concerned about the side effects of a drug before prescribing it. If you think about society as a body, you might begin to understand why there are people who seemingly oppose progress out of fear of unintended consequences. I think both groups can often be valid. And finally, 3, and here as we get into the title of the video, I want to make a point about what exactly Jorge Luis Borges has inspired with the story of the Library in Babel, because it really blurs the line between discovery and invention. Imagine if you could build the Library of Babel as it is described. Obviously, you can't physically build an infinite library. There isn't enough wood or books or toilets in the world to create it. However, the website thelibraryofbabel.info, created by Jonathan Basile, has created a digital library containing all possible combination of 1,312,000 possible characters that can fit on all possible pages containing 3,200 characters by generating them randomly as they are selected by users. Naturally, almost any book you select will be pure gibberish, but the library is capable of generating all possible books that have been, are, or potentially could be written. If you look through this library hard enough, you could find all the works of Shakespeare. You could find the novel that J.K. Rowling is currently working on, and you can find an accurate description of your own death. But don't be too freaked out by that, because you can also find thousands of inaccurate descriptions of your own death, and that's the problem. This library contains thousands of cures for cancer, but there is no way of knowing which one is correct. You see, like in life, if you want to find any useful information, not only do you have to be able to discern true from false, you also have to find it in an infinite library of nonsense.